What did you make of the offer that was put on the table by Hamas?
The main problem the offer put on by Hamas is a surrender by Israel to Hamas and an acknowledgement that Hamas will continue to control Gaza after the war is over. And this is a non-starter for Israel. There is, I can say, a little bit of a crack in the door open for negotiations, and it's reported that there is a Hamas team going to Cairo today to meet with the head of Central Intelligence in Cairo to see if there is some room for negotiation. This agreement proposed by Hamas is in 3 stages over a 4-month period of time, and if it is possible to at least agree on the first stage, we might be able to get some of the hostages home, the civilian hostages, in exchange for a 45-day ceasefire and the release of a significant number of Palestinian prisoners. This might be doable. I don't see how they move to stage 2 and 3, which would be an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and an end to the war while Hamas is still in control of Gaza.
This is an impossible situation, yet hostage negotiators like yourself have to pull a result out of that impossibility. Just give us a sense of what is going on behind the scenes in situations like this. How much contact is there? How much negotiation is happening? And how does that impact on what is being said publicly by both sides? Because the hostages are at the absolute centre of all this, aren't they?
They certainly are. This is a very strange negotiation because you have 2 sides, Israel and Hamas, who don't talk to each other, who are both dedicated to destroying each other, to killing each other. Israel's goal now is to find the Hamas leadership in Gaza and to kill them. And the Hamas's leadership desire is to kill all the Israelis and all the Israeli leaders. It's not like a normal negotiation where you're sitting in 2 rooms, you're sitting across from the same table, you reach an agreement, you shake hands, and you leave together. Here, the intent is that the other side won't exist when you finish your negotiation. So it makes it very difficult. There are 2 mediators here, the Qataris and the Egyptians. They both have their own motivations and interest. They both have leverage on Hamas and limited leverage on Israel. And the United States is also deeply engaged, and the United States is frustrated by the inability to exert more pressure on the Qataris, on the Egyptians, on the Israelis, and on Hamas. And in the meantime, the hostage families are suffering because we know that at least 20% of the hostages are already dead, and numbers that are not official are talking more about 50 of the 136 hostages no longer being alive. And every day they're in Gaza is definitely a risk to their lives.
Do you think there's any deal that Hamas could put forward that Netanyahu would say, OK?
I think that if it didn't require an Israeli surrender and a recognition that Hamas will stay in power in Gaza, then we could find a road, a path to agreement that would release Palestinian prisoners and hostages and have a ceasefire, which both sides badly need. There is a possibility, and I hope that the mediators find the way to do that, because there are interests on both sides for a timeout. And if we can have this timeout without linking it directly to the necessary end of the war, then perhaps we can take a breather, we can get some people free, people in Gaza can get some housing and medical supplies and food and water. It would be good for everyone all around if we did manage to have this timeout and it was part of a larger deal that we could continue to negotiate.
Although both sides want the destruction of each other, everyone also wants the killing to stop. The United States has made noises about this consistently for a number of weeks now, and they were involved in trying to broker this peace deal. How frustrated will they be by Benjamin Netanyahu's just refusal to countenance it?
Well, I think we see a growing divide between the Biden administration and Mr. Netanyahu. Secretary of State Blinken was here. He had requested to have a private meeting with the Israeli military chief of staff, which is very unusual that a Secretary of State would want to meet with the chief of the Israeli military. But I presume that he wanted that because he didn't want Netanyahu in the room. He wants to hear a real, honest assessment of where Israel is in the war and where the plans are without the politics behind it. Netanyahu prohibited that meeting from taking place, and Secretary of State Biden met with the Israeli military people in the presence of Prime Minister Netanyahu, who controlled that meeting. We hear the Americans talking more and more about the 2-state solution and the need to make progress on the day after political scenarios, which Netanyahu is refusing to do. And here we need to hear the voices coming much stronger from the UK as well. Foreign Secretary Cameron did speak about the possibility of UK recognition of the state of Palestine. Let's face it, if we want to defeat the ideology of Hamas, we need to help Palestinians learn that they can live for Palestine and they can stop dying for Palestine. Palestine needs to become real. And the UK, which has historic responsibility in this region, really does need to step forward and recognize the state of Palestine and push for Palestinian state admittance as a member state of the United Nations. That would pave the road forward toward defeating the ideology of Hamas.
Fascinating to